The first thing I registered was the scent of lavender and old books, the familiar comfort of my own apartment. My eyelids fluttered open to the gentle morning light filtering through my linen curtains, painting stripes across my worn oak floor. My phone lay on the nightstand screen dark. It was an ordinary morning, except it wasn't. A scream clawed its way up my throat, lodging there like a shard of glass. Because just moments before, or was it a lifetime, I'd been choking on the metallic taste of blood, the screech of tires echoing in my ears, Liam's cruel words a litany of my failure. "You were holding me back, Alara. This is a much better fit." My hand flew to my chest, expecting the phantom pain of impact, the crushing weight. Nothing. I was whole. I scrambled for my phone, fumbling with the unlock code, my breath catching. The date glared back at me. October 12th, 6 months. I was 6 months in the past. The day Liam was supposed to propose. The day he would forget the ring. The memories of that other life, the one that had ended in such brutal public humiliation, crashed over me with the force of a physical blow. The visionary gala. Serafina Hayes, Liam's boss. Her smile as sharp and cold as the diamonds she wore. And Liam. Liam, my Liam, slipping my custom-designed engagement ring onto Serafina's finger, the spotlight glinting off it, a beacon of my utter destruction. The cloying sweetness of Serafina's jasmine and bergamot perfume had clung to the air that night, a scent now forever linked to betrayal. I remembered the whispers, the pitying glances, Chloe's barely concealed smirk. My best friend. Another knife in a back already riddled with them. I'd been a ghost at my own execution. The hospital, the antiseptic smell that couldn't mask the decay of my spirit. The accident. A stupid, distracted step into oblivion. My last thought, a burning, futile wish. If only I could do it again. And now I could. A tremor ran through me, not of fear, but of something else. Something cold and hard and terrifyingly clear. The initial shock, the grief that threatened to drown me a second time, receded, leaving behind an icy promontory of resolve. There would be no more tears for Liam Sterling, no more naive trust. Alara Vance, the kind, accommodating, supportive girlfriend who always sat in the middle seat of her own life, was dead. The woman who woke in her place was a strategist, armed with perfect, painful foresight. "Never again," I whispered, the words of vow etched onto my reborn soul. "You will not break me, and Serafina, you'll learn what it means to lose." My gaze fell upon a small velvet box on my dresser, the one Liam had accidentally left in plain sight a week ago, thinking I hadn't noticed his unsubtle hints about a big surprise. This was it. Act 1. This time, I knew the script, and this time, I would be the director. My new advantage wasn't just foresight. It was the visceral memory of every humiliation, every dismissive wave of Liam's hand, every calculatedly cruel smile from Serafina. I remembered the precise inflection of Liam's voice when he lied, the slight tick in his jaw when he was under pressure. I recalled Serafina's dismissive glance at my perfectly adequate but not designer shoes at a company picnic, her pronouncements on killer instinct during a business forum I'd attended to support Liam. I knew their playbook, their vanities, their Achilles' heels. I also remembered the faint scent of burnt coffee and cheap perfume that always clung to Chloe when she'd been consoling me while simultaneously texting Liam updates. And I remembered the market. After my first life shattered, I'd obsessively researched Ascendant Corp, Serafina's world, trying to understand the forces that had destroyed me. Vague knowledge then, but now, with the clarity of Rebirth, stock fluctuations, surprise industry shifts, the rise of underdog companies, the fall of arrogant giants, it was all laid out before me like a roadmap. The morning of October 12th, Rebirth Day +1, Liam was his usual charming self, humming as he made coffee, entirely oblivious to the seismic shift that had occurred within me. "Big dinner tonight, Elle," he said, kissing my forehead. The casual affection once cherished now felt like a spider's touch. "Wear that blue dress I like." I smiled, a carefully constructed replica of my old self. "Of course." Throughout the day, I was a model of subtle sabotage. "Liam, darling, have you seen your lucky cufflinks?" The silver ones Serafina admired, I asked, feigning innocence, knowing he'd spend a frantic 10 minutes searching before finding them in his sock drawer where I'd helpfully tucked them away. His keys weren't on their usual hook. The report he needed for his morning meeting had been accidentally filed under archive. Tiny, insignificant disruptions designed to fray his nerves, to make him just a little less composed for his grand moment. I even tidied his nightstand, moving the ring box from its obvious spot to behind a stack of books. Not hidden, just less convenient. That evening at Quince, the overly lit, ostentatiously expensive restaurant Liam had chosen, the scene replayed with chilling fidelity. Yet I was no longer a passive audience member. He launched into a speech, the words about our journey and unbreakable bond tasting like ash in my mouth. Then, the familiar fumble in his pocket, the dawning horror on his face. Oh God. In my first life, I'd rushed in, flustered, making excuses for him, shielding him from embarrassment. This Ilara watched, a mask of gentle concern barely concealing the ice in my veins. I let the silence stretch, thick and uncomfortable, heads at nearby tables turning. You forgot it, Liam? I asked, my voice soft, laced with a delicate tremor of disappointment. Just loud enough. The clatter of cutlery from the next table seemed to halt. His face, already flushed, deepened to crimson. I'm so sorry, Elle. I don't know how. It's all right, Liam, I said, placing my hand over his, a gesture of forgiveness that was anything but. Let's just enjoy this lovely meal. He looked relieved, but also thrown. My lack of hysteria, my quiet resignation, was not in his script. He stammered through the rest of the dinner. When he tried to reschedule the proposal for the next day, I demurred. Let's just take a little breather, okay? That was a lot. I smiled sadly. I need some time. He couldn't argue. He was too busy grappling with his own monumental blunder, a blunder I had expertly allowed, even nudged along. That night, for the first time in this new life, I slept soundly, a sliver of cold satisfaction easing the ache in my chest. The next day, I began to build my arsenal. I took out a modest personal loan, the maximum I could get without raising suspicion, citing home renovations. My first life's wedding fund, a painful reminder of shattered dreams, became my seed capital. With trembling fingers, I made my first trades. A small, unheard-of biotech firm, Biosynth Futures, whose breakthrough cancer treatment I knew would be announced in 3 weeks. A short position against Evergreen Logistics, a company whose impending accounting scandal would rock the industry in 2 months. Every click of the mouse was a reclamation, a quiet act of war. I also started freelancing, offering marketing strategy services under a pseudonym, EV Consulting. My work at Innovate Solutions had always been good, but it was Liam who'd reaped the praise for the ideas I'd shared over dinner. Now my strategies, untethered from his ambition or my firm's bureaucracy, found fertile ground. The positive feedback, the tangible results, the secret income. It was like flexing a muscle I hadn't known was atrophying, and my digital life became a fortress. New encrypted email, VPNs, a meticulously crafted anonymous online persona, Cassandra, through which I began to delve into the murkier depths of Ascendant Corp and Serafina Hayes. Disgruntled former employees, hushed rumors of cut corners, whispers of an old buried scandal codenamed Helios Development. Cassandra listened to them all. I started a new journal, not of feelings, but of facts. A meticulous chronicle of Liam's lies, cross-referenced with his actual whereabouts gleaned from his careless social media check-ins, which he always shared with Serafina, not me. His late nights at the office often coincided with Serafina's Instagram stories from chic bars or exclusive events. Every entry was a nail in a coffin I was patiently building. Chloe, my best friend, called, her voice dripping with faux concern after Liam had undoubtedly lamented his proposal disaster. Oh, Ilara, honey, are you okay? Liam feels terrible. I'm fine, Chloe, I said, my voice even, just a bit overwhelmed. Well, if you need anything. Her concern felt as synthetic as the cheap vanilla body spray she favored, a scent I now associated with duplicity. I remembered her smirking face at the gala. This time, I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of my tears. I began to subtly distance myself, citing work commitments. Instead, I reconnected with Anya Sharma, an old college friend. Sharp, fiercely intelligent, a financial analyst at a rival firm, Anya was someone I'd let drift away in my Liam-centric world. We met for coffee. Real coffee, not the burnt offerings from the Innovate Solutions machine. I didn't tell her about my rebirth, of course, but I spoke of wanting to be more proactive with my finances, of feeling undervalued in my current role. Anya, ever practical, offered sound advice and a listening ear, her presence a balm compared to Chloe's cloying insincerity. At Innovate Solutions, I noticed David Chen, a quiet, brilliant coder whose ideas were often casually stolen by our overbearing manager. In my first life, I'd felt sorry for him but done nothing. This time, when our manager tried to claim David's innovative algorithm as his own in a team meeting, I spoke up. Actually, Mark, I said, my voice calm but firm, I believe David presented the foundational code for that last Tuesday. Perhaps we should have him walk us through its more advanced applications. David looked at me with stunned gratitude. Mark scowled. A small victory, but a significant one. An ally was being forged. Liam's primary vulnerability was his desperate, almost pathetic need for Serafina's approval. He was a peacock, constantly preening for her attention. His ambition was a gaping wound, easily infected. He also had a penchant for overspending, a trait I could subtly encourage. "Oh, Liam, that new watch looks incredible on you. Is it the Chronos X1? Serafina will be so impressed." He'd puff up, oblivious to the fact that it was stretching his finances thin. The high-stakes Project Chimera at Ascendant Corp., a project I knew from my first life was doomed to be a glorious, expensive failure without meticulous, almost prescient oversight. That would be his stage. His digital security was also laughably lax. His password for nearly everything was Serafina wins one. Predictable. Serafina, for all her brilliance, was blinded by her own arrogance. She underestimated anyone she deemed unimportant, and I, Ilara Vance, was firmly in that category. Her upcoming acquisition of Innovatech Dynamics was a vanity project, a move to crush a smaller, nimbler competitor. I knew it was riddled with hidden liabilities that her cursory due diligence would miss. Her inner circle was tiny, fiercely loyal, but also a single point of failure. And then there was the Helios development scandal, a buried piece of her past, a rotten foundation beneath her glittering empire. Her Achilles heel wasn't just business, it was her vanity. She needed to be seen as infallible, always one step ahead. The ridiculous clock on her office wall, a monstrosity of gears and Roman numerals that always seemed to tick too loudly, symbolized her belief that she controlled time, controlled everything. It would be satisfying to watch its gears grind to a halt. Liam, stinging from the failed proposal and my subsequent emotional withdrawal, I'd been needing space in the exercise, which he translated as her fault, not mine, threw himself into work. The leadership role for Project Chimera became his obsession, his path to redemption in Serafina's eyes. "It's revolutionary, Elle," he'd gush, spreading blueprints across our small dining table, the scent of chalk dust and disappointment from his late nights at the office clinging to him. "This will put Ascendant on a whole new trajectory." "It sounds incredibly ambitious, Liam," I'd reply, my voice a careful blend of admiration and subtle concern. "Only someone with your vision could pull it off." Internally, I was tracing the project's fatal flaws, the ones I remembered causing such a spectacular implosion in my first life. When he asked for my input on a resource allocation strategy, I stayed up late, crafting a plan that looked innovative, even daring, on paper. It prioritized speed over stability, flash over substance, subtly diverting crucial resources from quality control to superficial showcases. "This is brilliant, Elle," he exclaimed, kissing me distractedly. "Serafina will love the aggressive timeline." She did. Liam got Project Chimera. There was a small internal announcement, a congratulatory email from Serafina that Liam forwarded to me with a smug, "See?" And then, as I knew it would, Chimera began to unravel. Missed deadlines, budget overruns, whispers of instability in the core programming. Liam, overconfident and out of his depth, started working even later, his charm fraying, replaced by defensive arrogance. He'd call me, frustrated, and I'd listen sympathetically. Perhaps if you divert the beta testing team to focus on the UI enhancements for the stakeholder demo, I'd suggest, knowing full well the core instability was the real crisis. More terrible advice wrapped in a velvet glove. All the while, Biosynth Futures announced their breakthrough. My initial investment quadrupled. Evergreen Logistics imploded precisely on schedule. My portfolio was quietly, steadily growing. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Liam, citing my need for more space to focus on my freelance work. He barely noticed, too consumed by Chimera's ever-tightening noose. I found a small, airy studio apartment filled with the scent of lavender and old books, my sanctuary, my war room. Serafina Hayes considered herself a shark. Innovatech Dynamics was merely a particularly plump seal. The acquisition was meant to be swift, brutal, a demonstration of Ascendant's dominance. I knew Innovatech was cooking its books, hiding significant debt behind a veneer of plucky innovation. Through Cassandra, my anonymous online persona, I crafted an email. Using a secure, untraceable service, I sent it to a notoriously aggressive financial blogger known for his muckraking. The email contained meticulously selected, verifiable details of Innovatech's discrepancies, phrased as a tip from a concerned industry insider. I also had Anya, my friend, subtly raise questions during an informal chat with a contact who sat on Ascendant's board. Just heard some odd rumors about Innovatech's Q3 numbers, probably nothing. The blog post hit like a miniature earthquake the day before Ascendant's bid was to be finalized. Innovatech Dynamics. All sparkled, no substance? The headline blared. Innovatech stock wobbled. Serafina, furious at the leak, saw it as a challenge to her authority. She pushed the acquisition through, ramming it past a now nervous board, but the bad press forced her to pay a slightly higher premium to appease Innovatech's suddenly wary shareholders. The integration, as I foresaw, was a nightmare. The hidden debt surfaced. Key Innovatech talent, spooked by Ascendant's hostile takeover and Serafina's reputation, resigned en masse. Ascendant Corp's quarterly earnings report was a bloodbath. The ridiculous clock in Serafina's office must have ticked with a more frantic rhythm that week. Serafina, I heard through the corporate grapevine, suspected a rival firm of sabotage. Never in her wildest dreams would she suspect Alara Vance, Liam's quiet, unassuming ex-almost fiancé. Liam, meanwhile, was too busy wrestling the dying Chimera to register much beyond his own misery. He tried to blame me during one strained phone call for not being supportive enough during his Chimera crisis. I simply said, "Liam, I think you have bigger problems than my support levels right now." My own portfolio, however, was thriving. I'd taken a significant position in Ascendant's main competitor, Novatech Solutions, who were happily picking up the clients and talent fleeing Serafina's chaotic empire. My anonymous EV consulting was also flourishing. My strategies earning accolades for small, grateful businesses. The scent of success was so much sweeter than the cloying perfume of deceit I had once lived with. The Ascendant Corp Visionary Gala. The name itself was a cruel joke, given the distinct lack of vision Serafina had recently displayed. In my first life, this was the night of my public crucifixion. This time it would be their Golgotha. Liam was a wreck. Project Chimera was officially on life support, its plug about to be pulled. His relationship with Serafina was arctic. She barely acknowledged his presence, her displeasure a palpable force field. He was desperate for a lifeline, a grand gesture. "You need to remind her why she believed in you, Liam," I said gently over a strained coffee meeting he'd begged for. He looked awful. Shadowed eyes, constantly fidgeting. I almost felt a flicker of pity. Almost. Something bold, something that shows her you're still the man she saw. I then casually mentioned Serafina's well-known penchant for a particular style of cushion-cut diamond. I overheard her talking about it once at a company dinner. I lied smoothly. She said it was the epitome of classic power. The style, of course, was identical to my original engagement ring. I even helped him find a jeweler, a discreet craftsman known for quick, high-quality custom work. He owes me a favor, I said, a small, sad smile playing on my lips. Liam, blinded by desperation, didn't question it. He was already overextended financially, a fact I knew from his increasingly frantic calls to his credit card companies. His password for online banking was Serafina Rocks, equally imaginative. This new ring would push him to the brink. I also made sure Chloe knew. Liam's planning something huge for Serafina at the gala, I confided in her, feigning a wistful sadness. I think he's going to propose. He deserves some happiness, don't you think? Her eyes lit up with malicious glee. The gossip would spread, ensuring maximum audience anticipation. The day of the gala arrived. Liam, a bundle of raw nerves and cheap cologne, picked me up. He was wearing a new suit, slightly too tight, that I knew he couldn't afford. The custom ring box for Serafina was in his inner jacket pocket. He kept patting it, a nervous tick. Just as we were about to leave his, now rather bare apartment, I executed my small piece of theater. "Oh, Liam, careful!" I exclaimed, accidentally, stumbling and sloshing my glass of water onto his jacket. "Oh, I am so sorry." Panic flashed in his eyes. "My jacket! The ring!" "Quick, change," I urged. "You can't go like that." In the ensuing chaos, him frantically stripping off the damp jacket, me helping him find another, dabbing at the spill, the ring box for Serafina was misplaced. Slipped from the pocket of the wet jacket, it ended up beneath a cushion on his sofa, a spot he wouldn't think to check in his frenzy. He only realized its absence as our taxi pulled up to the glittering facade of the hotel hosting the gala. "The ring!" he gasped, his face paling to a sickly green. "It's gone. I must have left it in the other jacket." I feigned shock, then a dawning, horrified recognition. "Oh, Liam! Not again!" My voice was a breathy whisper for his ears only. Just like with my proposal. What are you going to do?" The private twist of the knife was exquisite. He looked like he might be sick. Then, the desperate, predatory gleam I'd been waiting for entered his eyes. He remembered. He remembered the velvet box still tucked away in my apartment, containing the ring from his first failed proposal to me in this timeline. The ring he'd presented with such hollow promises. "Alara?" he hissed, grabbing my arm. "Your ring, the one I gave you, let me borrow it just for tonight to impress Serafina. I'll get it back to you, I swear." I pulled my arm away, my face a mask of hurt and reluctance. "Liam, I don't know, it's, please, Elle, my career, everything depends on this." I let the silence hang, then sighed, a martyr to his ambition. "If it's that important to you, Liam," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "All right." He practically snatched the ring from my hand when I produced it from my evening bag, where it had been waiting patiently. He didn't notice the small, satisfied smile that touched my lips as he turned away, pocketing my past to pawn for his future. He didn't notice that before leaving my apartment, I'd taken a series of time-stamped selfies, the ring clear on my finger, the original jeweler's receipt dated and visible beside it. The stage was set. The players were in position. The air in the grand ballroom crackled with anticipation, the scent of expensive perfume, desperation, and imminent disaster. My black sequined dress, a stark contrast to the pale, hopeful blue I'd worn in my first life, felt like armor. I was no longer a pawn. Tonight, I was the queen, and the board was mine. The visionary gala ballroom was a symphony of clinking champagne glasses, forced laughter, and the underlying thrum of anxiety. Ascendant Corp's recent stumbles were the unspoken topic on everyone's lips. Serafina, a Valkyrie in midnight blue, glided through the room, her smile fixed, her eyes scanning for threats. Liam trailed in her wake like a nervous page boy, clutching my ring in his sweaty palm. Chloe was already there, table hopping, her eyes darting towards me with a smug pity I found almost amusing. I found Anya and David near a discreetly located bar. David, whose burgeoning tech firm Momentum Solutions was now providing some of the gala's audio-visual support, a contract I'd subtly helped him secure, gave me a reassuring nod. Anya squeezed my hand. Ready? She whispered. Born for it. I murmured back, a ghost of a smile on my lips. The preliminary speeches droned on. Then, as expected, Liam stepped into the spotlight, looking pale but resolute. His voice, amplified by the microphone, quavered slightly as he began his sycophantic ode to Serafina. A titan of industry. A visionary leader. The woman who showed me what true ambition means. I watched Serafina, a flicker of surprise, then pleased expectation, smoothed the tense lines around her mouth. She was lapping it up. He reached the crescendo. Serafina, he declared, turning to her, his voice gaining a desperate strength. He sank to one knee, the crowd gasped. This was more dramatic than they had anticipated. Will you accept this token of my profound admiration and partnership? He opened the ring box. My ring. The one whose design I'd lovingly sketched, whose stone Liam had claimed to have picked with such care. It winked malevolently under the ballroom lights as he slipped it onto Serafina's perfectly manicured finger. The proposal sparkled on his boss's hand. I thought, the irony a bitter tang. A wave of applause, hesitant at first, then swelling, peppered with excited chatter. Serafina admired the ring, a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. She looked up, catching my eye for a fraction of a second, a flicker of dismissive victory in her gaze. That was my cue. I moved, not from the shadows, but from the heart of the room, a borrowed microphone already in my hand thanks to David's foresight. My steps were measured, my black dress shimmering as I approached the edge of the dance floor, just below the slight dais where they stood. A beautiful ring, Serafina, I said, my voice calm, carrying clearly through the suddenly silent ballroom. Every head turned. Liam froze halfway to his feet, his face a mask of dawning horror. Serafina's smile faltered, annoyance replacing triumph. It certainly has a history. The enormous screens behind them, which had been displaying Ascendant's logo, flickered. Then, an image appeared. Me, radiant, wearing that exact ring, the timestamp clearly visible. October 12th, 6:15 p.m., earlier this evening. In fact, I continued, my voice as smooth as silk, yet edged with steel, it was the ring Liam proposed to me with. Or rather, the ring he borrowed from me tonight after misplacing the one he'd supposedly bought for you, Serafina. He does have a habit of forgetting rings at crucial moments. The screen changed. The original jeweler's receipt, Alara Vance. Custom cushion cut, paid in full. Then, a short, crystal-clear audio clip. Liam's panicked voice. Ellie, please. My career, everything, depends on this. Just let me borrow your ring for tonight. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chloe looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. I turned to Liam, whose face had crumpled into a grotesque mixture of terror and disbelief. You seem to have a habit of misplacing things, Liam. Rings, loyalties, integrity. My voice was devoid of heat, a simple statement of fact. This time, however, you didn't just forget a ring. You forgot who actually paid for the bauble currently adorning Ms. Hayes's hand. Then I faced Serafina. Her eyes were like chips of ice. And you, Serafina, you wanted a partner who sparkles? Perhaps you should have conducted more thorough due diligence, not just on your acquisitions, which I hear from reliable sources are bleeding Ascendant Corp dry. The screen behind me shifted again, displaying a summary of Innovatech Dynamics' disastrous post-acquisition financials, followed by headlines about Ascendant's plummeting stock. But on the man you chose as your protege, this ring wasn't a symbol of his devotion to you. It was a monument to his desperation and his theft from me. Much like, I paused, letting the words hang. Ascendant Corp's recent growth seems built on rather shaky foundations and, let's call them ethically flexible practices. The final image bloomed on the screen, incriminating excerpts from the Helios development scandal, highlighting Serafina's signature on damning documents. Whispers turned into stunned shouts. Board members were on their feet, faces ashen. Speaking of acquisitions and shaky foundations, I delivered the final blow, my voice ringing with a cold, hard clarity. My company, Phoenix Strategies, a murmur went through the financial reporters I'd anonymously invited, has, over the past few months, been quietly acquiring a significant controlling interest in Innovatech Dynamics' outstanding debt, making Phoenix one of Ascendant Corp's primary creditors. We've also taken a rather substantial position in several of your key competitors. I allowed myself a small, predatory smile. And regarding the Helios development affair, I believe my legal team submitted compelling new evidence to the authorities just this afternoon. I imagine you'll be hearing from them shortly, Serafina. Serafina's carefully constructed composure shattered. Her face, moments before alight with triumph, was now a canvas of disbelief, fury, and dawning, abject terror. She stared at the ring on her finger as if it were a viper, then ripped it off and hurled it at Liam. It clattered to the marble floor, the sound echoing in the sudden, profound silence. "You imbecile!" she shrieked, her voice raw, all cultivated elegance gone. Liam simply stood there, broken, the spotlight that was meant to be his salvation now exposing him as a fool, a thief, a hollow man. The grand proposal, the ring that sparkled so brightly, had become the emblem of their joint, spectacular ruin. The ensuing chaos was pandemonium. Flashing cameras, shouting reporters, horrified board members converging on Serafina, who looked like she might physically collapse. It was the most beautiful implosion I could have ever orchestrated, later amidst the wreckage of their reputations. As security was attempting to guide a shell-shocked Liam through a gauntlet of jeering onlookers, he saw me. I was standing quietly by the entrance, watching the fallout with a serenity that felt like a balm on old wounds. He stumbled towards me, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes wild. "Lara, I made a mistake," he stammered, his voice hoarse. "A terrible mistake. Please, we can fix this. I still love you." I looked at him, this ghost from a life I'd thankfully shed. There was no hatred left, only a vast, cool emptiness where love and pain had once resided. "No, Liam," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "There's nothing to fix. You didn't make a mistake, you made a series of choices." And I met his gaze squarely, made mine. "The difference is, I learned. You clearly didn't." I paused. "Goodbye." I turned and walked away, the strains of a shattered waltz fading behind me, leaving him to the wolves he had so eagerly courted. Serafina, I heard later, tried to reach out through her lawyers, proposing a mutually beneficial discussion. My response, delivered via my own formidable legal counsel, was succinct. All business will be conducted through official channels. There is nothing personal to discuss. The cold marble floor felt steady beneath my heels as I stepped out into the crisp night air. The scent of jasmine and bergamot, thankfully absent, replaced by the clean, sharp fragrance of my own victory. The fallout was swift and brutal, exceeding even my most optimistic projections. Liam Sterling became a cautionary tale whispered in corporate break rooms, the ring Romeo, a social and professional pariah. Fired ignominiously from what remained of Ascendant Corp, his calls went unreturned, his charm rendered useless. He ended up in a cramped studio apartment, the kind with the scent of burnt coffee and old regrets, his once bright future reduced to ash. Serafina Hayes fared no better. The Helios scandal erupted with volcanic force, triggering SEC investigations, shareholder lawsuits, and eventually criminal charges. Ascendant Corp's stock flatlined. The board, in a desperate bid for survival, ousted her. Her empire, built on arrogance and deceit, crumbled into dust. The last I heard, she was liquidating assets to pay legal fees. The ridiculous clock from her office probably sold for a pittance. The ring, my ring, was briefly an item of morbid curiosity before disappearing into an evidence locker, its sparkle extinguished. Chloe, desperate to dissociate herself from the implosion, found herself an outcast. The circles she'd tried so hard to infiltrate now viewed her with contempt. Her social climbing ended in a screeching, undignified halt. As for Ascendant Corp, it was eventually carved up and sold for parts. Momentum Solutions, David's company, thriving under his ethical leadership and backed by Phoenix Strategies investments, acquired a significant portion of its viable assets, rising like a phoenix from ascendant's ashes. And me, Ilara Vance, the once invisible woman, became the CEO of Phoenix Strategies. My company was lauded for its shrewd investments, its commitment to ethical business, and its uncanny ability to spot potential where others saw only risk. We didn't just make money, we built better companies. The small, airy studio had been upgraded to a spacious penthouse, still scented with lavender and old books, but now also with the subtle fragrance of fresh paint and new beginnings. My office, unlike Serafina's, had no ridiculous clock, only a wide view of the city I was helping to reshape. The transformation was complete. The naive, accommodating girl was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her worth, her power, her voice. The peace I found wasn't the absence of memory, the scars of Liam's betrayal, the ghost of that first painful life. It would always be a part of me. But they were no longer chains. They were reminders of the steel I'd forged in fire. Anya was my CFO, her brilliance given free rein. David was a close friend and a key strategic partner. I built a circle based on respect and genuine affection, not convenience or ambition. Love? Perhaps one day. But it was no longer a defining need. My fulfillment came from the work, from the quiet satisfaction of justice served, and from the knowledge that I had taken the worst moment of my life and rewritten it into my greatest triumph. Sometimes, late at night, looking out over the glittering cityscape, I'd think of that ring, a symbol. Liam had used it to try and buy favor. Serafina had worn it as a trophy. For me, it had been a promise, then a brand of shame. Now, it was nothing but a catalyst, a reminder that the most brilliant sparkle isn't found in diamonds, but in the unyielding strength of a spirit reforged. And that, I knew, was a sparkle no one could ever take from me again.